So now let us begin with the loop control statements. Now there exist three type of loops: for loop, while loop and repeat loop. As we all know, for loop is used as an entry control statement wherein before entering into the loop the condition will get checked, and if it found to be true then the loop will be executed. You can see here the syntax of for loop, the keyword for, and inside the brackets you have a vector which will have some value range, and from that range single values will be given to this variable over here value, and till that range is not exhausted our for loop will run. So this is how a for syntax is there. It is quite similar with the syntax that we can see in Python language. So now we have the example illustrating how for loop is executed. We can see here there is a keyword for, and inside bracket there is a vector given within a range 1 to 5 and a variable I is there. So this I will take single value from this range starting from 1 and ending to 5, and each time it will execute print statement, and whatever we have printing there will be executed. So as we are printing the current value of I, in the output we can see we are getting values from 1 to 5. If we do this on our studio, so the for loop, and inside for loop as you can see it has shown us the syntax. So variable is expected, so I given the variable in, and here the vector is expected, the vector is expected, so I am giving the vector ranging from say 1 to 5, and what to do is given inside this bracket. I am simply printing the value of current value of I. So if I print the entire block over there, I can see here the values are getting printed from 1 to 5. So this is the very basic use of for loop. Let us have another example. Now here you can see there exists a vector with 4 character values in it, or character element in it, and now we want to display all those 4 characters. So again we can use a for loop. So for is running from 1 to 4 again, and each time now it is not displaying just I, but it is displaying x of I, that is ith character from vector x. So whichever will be the value of I, that index character will be displayed. So initially I will have value 1, so x of 1 is a, then I will increase to b, 2, and we will get b, and likewise. So let us perform it on our studio and see for ourselves whether we are getting the appropriate results or not. For variable is I again in vector. Okay, so I'm using another vector, so I must create a vector first. So that vector is x with 4 character values in it: a, b, c, and d. Oh, sorry. So d. So these are the 4 character we have created inside a vector. You can see here x has been created, and now run for loop. So I am running a loop from as I want to display 4 characters, I am running it from 1 to 4, and when I am running, in every iteration I am printing whichever current value of I is. So from that current index, whichever value of x is there, I am printing it. So if I run for loop, as you can see here ABCD is the output. So see here, I will be taking values from this range. Initially I will be 1, so x of 1 is A. Next I will be 2, so x of 2 is B, and likewise. Now see this function. Oh, sorry. Here we are again having the same vector, and we are again printing the same result. We are getting also the same result, but instead of providing the range, that is 1 from 1 to 4, we are using a function named as sequence along, that is seq underscore along, and passing our vector as an argument to that function. Now what it does and why it is useful, suppose here there are only 4 values, but suppose our vector has some values in some thousands. So we must exactly know how many values does that vector have. But if we do not know the range, then we cannot give the range here manually. And that's why this function will save us by automatically calculating the number of element in this vector and setting the range accordingly. So we don't have to bother how many elements are there and what should be the range. It will be calculated automatically by sequence along function. And this is how it is more useful than simply having the range. So same code we are going to execute, but this time we'll be using sequence along function. So I have already created X, so I should not create it. There is no need to create it again. I just need to call a sequence along function. So as I'm calling sequence along function, I am not using or giving the range. Sequence along, and I am saying it X. If I run this, and you can see here we are able to get exact same output as previous, but without providing the range. So this is use of sequence along function. Moving forward, as we all know, we can have a for loop inside a for loop, which is known as a nesting. So the nesting of for loop is done quite similarly as we do it in C or C++ programming. Now what we are doing here is we are creating a matrix which is having values from 1 to 6, and we are arranging those values from within 2 rows and 3 columns, and calling that matrix X. Now in the outer for loop, we are running that loop for exactly 2 number of iterations. Now we'll see how to do it. See here, there is another function named as sequence length. Now what that function does, here we are given n row of X. So our matrix X, how many rows are there? So n row will calculate that it has 2 rows, and that 2 rows will be taken by this sequence underscore length function. So our I will be running for 2 values. So our outer for loop will run twice, and for each iteration of outer for loop, inner for loop is running for some fixed amount of time. Let us see what that number is. So j in sequence length. Now again this sequence length will return us the length of the columns of X. So n columns will give sequence length idea about calculating number of columns. So they are 3. So this function will take value 3. So j will run 3 times. So for each iteration of outer for loop, inner for loop we run 3 times. And this kind of output will be given to us. Okay, now if you remember on day 3 we have seen that in a matrix by default it is populated in a column wise manner. So this is a wrong output. We pardon for this. It should have been like 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6, because as we know by default our matrix get initiated in a column wise manner. So this must be 1 2 3 4 and 5 6. So this is how nesting operation is performed. Moving forward, we get while loop. Now the major difference between for and while loop is that we use for loop primarily in the cases where we know how many times the loop should be executed. Like for all the previous cases that we saw, we know that we want to execute a loop for 4 times or 5 times or likewise. So when the number of iterations are fixed, we use for loop. While loop is applicable to mostly those cases in which we only know the resulting conditions for which the loop should execute, and we cannot confidently say how many times that loop is going to execute. So while loop is, if we look from a programmer's perspective, while loop is more applicable, is more usable than for loop. Here, as you can see, there is no range given. You only have a condition. If it is true, the statement will be executed, otherwise not. And we cannot say for what time it will be true, and that is why while loop is known as indefinite loop, whereas for loop is known as definite loop. Let us see one example for while loop. So now we have a variable count which is initialized with value 0. Here we are saying that while count is less than 5, simply print count and increase the count by 1, so that it will not go into a infinite loop and will reach up to some end condition. So this is simple illustrative example. If we come here, we have a variable, say count, and we are providing it with value 0. Now we are calling a while loop and providing a condition into it, and the condition says that unless count is less than not greater than 5, simply print the value of count. So print count, and to make sure that our condition is met or ends, so we should increase the count by 1 after every iteration. So count equal to count plus 1. So this is what we have done, and let us execute the entire section. And you can see count value is 0 and it is increasing up to less than 5. That's why as an output we have got from 0 to 4. So this is what our for loop is, sorry, while loop is. And next we have a repeat loop. Now the major difference between a while loop and a repeat loop is that, if you can see it in its syntax, repeat loop first executes the statement and then finally checks the condition, whereas in while loop first the condition was checked and then the loop was executed if it is found to be true. So here we can say that repeat loop is a replacement given by R for do while loop. Here if you can see, as an example, there is a variable 1 with value 5 and we are using a repeat loop. We are printing the value of variable, we are increasing the value of that variable by 1, and now we are checking the condition that if the variable's value is greater than 10, simply break it. So you can see this repeat loop will execute at least once even if the condition comes out to be false, because we have already print the variable. What if the variable has value 15? It would have been printed and then incremented by 1, and then when condition will be checked, it will become false because 16 is greater, it will become true because 16 is greater than 10, and in that case we could have used break statement to come out of the loop, but still for once we had printed the result. So repeat loop will execute at least once, just like do while loop. So you can see here, as it is starting with 5 and we are breaking when the value goes beyond 10. So in input we will see 10 also. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 is the input. What the break function do we will see in the next section. So if I see here, we are creating variable 1, or we can have any name of the variable for that matter, variable 1, and we are using a repeat loop. So we are using here a repeat loop repeat, inside repeat print the value of variable 1, then increment the variable 1's value by 1, sorry, it should be variable 1 plus 1, and then now check if variable 1 is greater than 10. Oh, sorry, that is a wrong pair of bracket that we have generated. Then here I would like to break out of the loop. Now if we run this, as expected we are getting values from 5 to 10, because once the value reaches 11, that value will become greater than 10 and this condition will come out to be true. We will get inside if and we will break. So this is how repeat loop is used. So repeat loop is mostly used when you want to execute a condition at least once, even if the condition comes out to be false. So these were the 3 loop statement: for loop, while loop and repeat loop. Next is next statement. Now the next statement is used to skip the iteration of the loop. So it is exactly similar to what we have in C and C++ as continue statements. And the syntax is like this. Suppose you have a loop, whichever loop it is, it may be a while or a for or a repeat, but you have a loop which is running say from 1 to 100, and if for a particular condition you want to skip, you can use next into it. So for I in 1 to 100, if i's value is less than equal to 20, next. So you can see here it is less than equal to 20. You are not checking exactly single value, but you are checking a group of values. So though your loop is starting from 1, for first 20 values it will simply do next, means it will not perform anything but simply skip it. So if we try to do it on our studio, so suppose we'll create a for loop with variable I in, and the vector is 1 to 100. So when we have this, if the value of I is less than equal to 20, I am simply skipping those rows, so I am calling next. Else, you don't have to give else, But if that condition is not there, then what to do? You can write here. So print I. Okay, I must reduce the number of range, otherwise it will print huge numbers. So say 30. So now if I run this, there will be only 10 values, that is ranging from 21 to 30, which should get displayed. And yeah, first 20 values are not getting displayed because I am simply skipping those values using a next statement. So this is how we use a next statement. Moving forward, we have a break statement. Now just opposite to next statement, break statement will break the flow of execution and will take you out of the immediate and closing loop statement. So you can see here, for I in 1 to 100, print I, but if I is greater than 20, break. So now only first 20 elements will be, or only first 20 values from 1 to 20 will be displayed, because once this value is true, this if condition is true, and you come inside the break statement, it will take you directly out of for statement. So even if we are not talking about all the values greater than 20, but if we even if we would have given here I equal to 20, only for 20 we want to break, but still it could have taken us out of for loop, and we will not be in condition to print all the other values. So if I run this in RStudio, it will be more clear. So here I want let us copy this. No, we'll create it again. So for I in range 1 to 100, now there is no harm in going the range up to 100, because only up to 20 we are going to print. So what we are doing is print I, but if I value is equal to 20, even if for one value we are breaking, but it will break for entire loop, because once it comes out of loop, it never goes in again unless and until executed externally. So break. And if I run this, now you can see values are running from 1 to 20, and once the value is 20, you have to break. You break and you don't come back for value range from 21 to 100. Once you are out, you are out. So this is how break is very useful. We hardly use next statement, but break statement is very useful and seldom used, very frequently used.